All right, Zach, let's hit the Heisman odds here. So these are the Heisman odds from FanDuel. Zach, is there anybody missing on this list that you're like, oh, wow, I'm surprised this person isn't on there? In fact, I'm not even like, I'm surprised this person isn't on there. I'm like, this is malpractice how you don't have this person on there. Who is missing from this list, Zach?
I think it's the quarterback of the team that I always pick to lose. Luke Altmyer. Why is he
Yes.
not on this list?
I don't know.
Fire everybody at FanDuel. Just fire them all. I'm
Yeah.
done.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. They do not have Luke Altmyer on here. I don't know if they just missed him or what. Now I have been on record saying I don't think it's likely a quarterback from Illinois wins the Heisman just because I don't know if Illinois they have that brand, but at the same time, like Colorado just had a player win the Heisman. Now, I think a good amount of that is the brand of Deion Sanders and everything, but still, like this is something that you can't just completely throw him off the list just because he's from Illinois. So, and there's players from all different kinds of Big Ten schools out here. We got Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, Nebraska, Indiana, Wisconsin, who else? Michigan, Iowa. Like there are tons of different guys on here from tons of different schools. So there's really no excuse for Luke Altmyer not to be on here. I will say he is on Bet Online though. If you want to go over there, I think he is 10,000 plus 10,000 over there. So he's kind of like where Mikey Keene and Damon Williams are on this list. So I think he should be higher than that, but whatever. They make this stuff up based on how people bet and stuff like that a lot. So Zach, let's talk about the Big Ten players first, and then I will list some national players. Actually, should I list the national players first, or should we do Big Ten first?
Well, you got the Big Ten ones up
All
already,
right.
so why don't we?
Okay, so first in the Big Ten, Jeremiah Smith, 1,200. Then Drew Aller, Dante Moore, Julian Sand, Dylan Raiola, Fernando Mendoza, Jaden Mayava, Bryce Underwood, Damon Williams, Mikey Keene, Aiden Childs, Mark Gronowski, Justice Haynes or Hayes? Is it Haynes or Hayes? I forget.
Hey, Haynes.
Haynes, okay. Caleb Downs, Evan Stewart, Billy Edwards, Jordan James, who isn't even in college football this year, but apparently they put him on the odds. So two double screw up by FanDuel here. And then finally, the very last in all of the odds, Nick Marsh from Michigan State. I thought that was cool that he made himself on there. So, Zach, any thoughts here on the Big Ten players and their Heisman odds?
Um, man, it's really hard to, I think, to really figure out different things because two of the top four are guys that haven't really played. Julian Sand and Dante Moore. I get it. Like they're going to be the starting quarterbacks at national championship contending teams. But I think honestly, my genuine thought here is I don't know who rises to the top because even Jeremiah Smith, like all world player, but he's going to need extreme volume to win the award as a receiver. It's possible, but like, why did Travis Hunter win? Because he played both ways. He had a ton of snaps. So I think Smith could win it for sure. I honestly, Drew Allard, he needs a Jeremiah Smith to be able to do this because even with this, like, and he had some really good moments in this season, but the reason why they were winning was not because of his production. And he does not have an X factor. So to think that he's going to be able, so I just think the only one out of the top five that really seems feasible at this point is Jeremiah Smith. And that's going to be completely dependent on whether he gets the targets. So I think you could make a case for guys down the list more as dark horses. So like Damon Williams, Jaden Mayava, if they have better than expected seasons and their teams do better than expected, but I think a lot of the other guys on this list, like, I'm sorry, an Iowa quarterback's never going to win the Heisman. Like, at least not in this juncture. Right.
Who knows? Tim Lester, he might open it up next season.
Maybe.
You have the Caleb Johnson of Iowa quarterbacks.
Yeah, but Caleb Johnson wasn't even invited to the ceremony, was he?
No,
I don't think he was.
I don't think he was in the top 10, which is crazy.
Insane, by the
which is
way.
crazy.
Again, do better, Heisman people. Gosh. But I don't know. I just look at this list and I'm like honestly, as I'm verbally processing, I'm sorry about that. Dante Moore and Julian Sayin, I might actually put up as my top two based on potential. And then
Yeah,
Jeremiah
I
Smith.
think I think one of the reasons why Jeremiah Smith is so high is because he does have a brand new quarterback there for him. When you win the Heisman as a receiver, you have to do it with somebody that doesn't necessarily have any hype. You think about when Devontae Smith did it; it's when Mac Jones came in and he was the starter that season. The reason that Marvin Harrison Jr. was kind of getting some love for it was because Kyle McCord refused to throw the ball to anybody else but Marvin Harrison Jr. Like 50% of the time. So when you are that dominant and your quarterback is not really spreading the ball around. Now, do I think Julian Sayin is only going to throw the ball to Jeremiah Smith? No, I think he's a better quarterback than that. But you could see the scenario where Julian Smith doesn't quite have the name recognition of like a Drew Aller or a Fernando Mendoza or something like that. Like if Drew Aller or Fernando Mendoza was Jeremiah Smith's quarterback, I think you'd see Jeremiah Smith lower in the odds here. But the
That's a
fact that
good
you
point.
have somebody starting their very first year and Julian Sayin, who is a big name, he was a big time recruit, but it's still his first year starting, that gives him a better chance of winning the award. I do think it's interesting that Bryce Underwood and Mikey Keene are so close with their odds. And John Jacobs was asking, what do these numbers mean? I'm not going to explain everything about the betting. Like if you want to, go to a betting show and learn about that, I don't bet personally. I think they're interesting because they kind of give you public perception a lot of times, and also what the people who are running these sites think. Who's going to win the award and stuff like that. Closer to zero, obviously you are. Is the closer you are to favorite, but if anything is minus, then you're the favorite in that situation. So Jeremiah Smith being the closest to zero makes him the biggest favorite in the Big Ten, if that makes sense. So that's kind of
Mhm.
your general idea there. If anybody else is better and you want to explain it further to John Jacobs in the chat, feel free. But yeah, what's your thoughts on Bryce Underwood and Mikey Keene here being so close together, Zach?
Well, they definitely have greater hope in Underwood starting at being at plus 6,000, or at least that if he starts, he will have a bigger impact than Mikey
Or
Keene.
the public has greater hope in him
Yeah,
starting?
that's a
That
good
too.
point. But I don't think either of them have much of a shot to win the Heisman, if I'm honest.
Who'd you say? I apologize.
I don't think either of them have a
Yeah.
shot to win the Heisman.
Yeah, we'll see. It's going to be an interesting situation this season at Michigan. Now, if Michigan goes, like 11-1 or something like that, and Bryce Underwood starts all year, there's a good chance there, I think. But yeah, they'd have to they'd have to have a really really good season in order to make that happen. All right. Anybody on here you think should be higher? Like, should Caleb Downs be higher? Should Aiden Childs be higher? Damon Williams, should he be higher? Any thoughts here on that?
No, man, I feel like I'm such a wet blanket. No, I just don't think any of them have proven much. Like even like Maava, and I mean this is gonna be a good segue for our quarterback rankings because it's like there's just not a lot of guys where you're like, oh yeah, you've proven yourself. Like you've had a couple of games. So like I just don't. To be honest though, I looked at the rest of the field, and I know this is where you're going next, and I'm like, why is Garrett Nussmeyer the favorite? My goodness, what are we doing? Like I
Just because he's
understand.
one of the only quarterbacks returning. Like he and Cade Klubnik, Drew Aller, and Nico Iamaiava. Iamaiava.
Have
I'm
they
still
seen
struggling
LSU?
from that from the Tennessee Ohio
Yeah,
State preview.
yeah. Have they seen LSU's coach? Have they seen? Well, I guess that might actually
He
help
did
his
get, as I
cause.
say, he did get Jaden Daniels, but I'd argue that was probably more the offensive coordinator than
Yeah,
Brian Kelly.
that's fair. That's
So,
fair.
yeah. So the national rank here of everything, it goes plus 800. So that's not really like super favorite. That means that they're not super confident in somebody winning the Heisman, but it starts Garrett Nussmeyer, Arch Manning, Cade Klubnik, Jeremiah Smith, Drew Aller, Nico Iamaiava, Dante Moore, Lenora Sellers, Julian Sayin, Carson Beck. So that's your top 10 right there. I think it's crazy that Julian Sayin is ahead of Carson Beck personally, but I think that just goes to show how bad of a season Carson Beck had last year and how
Mhm.
little people believe in him. You
Does
know,
anyone really believe in Miami?
Mario Cristobal, him.
Yeah, which leads to the next question. Does anyone really believe in Mario Cristobal?
That's fair. Fair.
He has one
One of the
claim to fame.
best
He beat
things
Ohio State in 2021. That's it.
I say one of the best things that ever happened to Oregon was Mario Cristobal moving on because Dan Lanning is 10 times the coach that
It's
Mario
so
Cristobal is.
true.
Has
It's
has
so
any
true.
school ever upgraded more from a coach leaving their school and them hiring another one? Like that's not like group of five and like you kind of get lucky on somebody. Like
Yeah.
that that just
Yeah.
if I'm an Oregon fan, I thank God every day that that Mario Cristobal left and he sent Dan Lanning into my life.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
All right.
Preach it. Preach it,
Let's
JR.
see. See if anybody uh Troy V, thanks for being here. Troy says, I was talking about Underwood. If he starts, it would be a lot of faith to think that he finds instant success. Not many true freshmen have succeeded. My thought on this, and this can kind of segue into our rankings a little bit because you have Mikey Keene as a projected starter. I have Bryce Underwood. My thought on this is that I think Sharon Moore doesn't have a choice. I think you got to start Bryce Underwood. The amount of hype that the media is going to give this kid and everything else, like, and it's deservedly so. Have you seen him in a uniform? Have you seen him throwing a ball? Like it looks really, really good. But I think if you start Mikey Keene game one, like it's not going to be pretty for him because literally every little thing he does is going to be dissected by those fans of Michigan, in my opinion, because they're going to be so excited about Bryce Underwood. I'm not saying they're wrong to do so. Again, I'm somebody that thinks it's good for fans to have expectations, but but I just think it's going to be really, really hard for Mikey Keene to have a successful season if he starts the entire year because he's always going to have that over his shoulder of like Underwood should start. Underwood should be number one. What's your thoughts, Zach?
Yeah. I
Because I think Troy does make a good point. Like not many freshmen have succeeded, but it's the fans, right?
yeah. Well, I think here's the problem is I think the fans are going to say we want Bryce Underwood. I do think there is some I I think this is how I think this is going to go. I think Mikey Keene's going to start and then Underwood's going to take his spot as Keene starts to struggle cuz I think he will struggle. He doesn't have the offensive weapons that uh that other quarterbacks have. They're upgrading for sure, but they're not.
They got better players. They don't have that number one guy yet,
Yeah.
right? Like they need that number one go-to receiver. Donovan McCauley can possibly be that, but he's not been that in his career yet. So you can't say that for sure that he's going to be that.
Yeah. And I understand people saying like Underwood's the number one recruit. Not necessarily because other sites have him below Tavian St. Clair. But
Rivals.
yeah. But I'm just I still I am hesitant. I mean, I think, we'll probably get the guys from Maze and Brew on at some point and ask them about it. And they'll probably be like, Underwood for Heisman and for president. I'll be like, okay, there you
All
go.
of the above.
Yeah. But like, I hesitate just because, I get Dylan Raiola from a year ago, but like Raiola was coming to replace guys that should not have been quarterbacks, period. Like Harburg was playing tight end.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, come on, guys. Seriously. Mikey Keene's a decent level quarterback. And so that's why I'm like, I'm not saying that he won't overtake Keene. I am just hesitant to say that it's definite.
Yeah. Yeah. Troy says, we just saw Raiola struggle last year. He's kind of rated almost as high and went to a boring offense too. I listen, I don't think you're wrong, Troy. Raiola struggled a lot last year. Dante Moore struggled his first year as well. I think you grow and stuff like that and get better. Um, so, if Sharon Moore thinks he's got a really, really good team this year that can compete and go to the playoffs, maybe he does start Mikey Keene and if he thinks he's that good. But I just don't know if Mikey Keene's that good.
Yeah.
How much better is he than a true freshman? I don't know. It'll be
Yeah.
interesting to find out. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Um, Dave here says one and rival sucks. Yeah, there's a lot of people that aren't too happy with that. And they didn't even have Tavian or Bryce Underwood number one. They had
Yeah, they had somebody
the
else.
Alabama dude, Keelan Russell. That was the biggest thing to me. It's like, why do you have Keelan Russell? Like, I could understand having Bryce Underwood two and Tavian St. Clair one. Like, okay, it's a difference of opinion. I can understand that, but yeah, I didn't get Keelan Russell one. That didn't make any
Yeah.
sense to me.